I want to start off by giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rekah Kwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who teacheth the Bible in 100% truth. And shalom to the hopeful elect of the 12 tribes of Israel, especially the 144,000, who consist of the Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans in the land of the Americas, as well as the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners living amongst the other nations. Shalom to you. Okay, today I'm looking, as you can see on the screen, I've got the Bible timeline. I've looked at this before, this particular image. It's quite good because it sort of breaks down the Bible into particular sections, so you can kind of understand what you're looking at. And obviously each section has its purpose. So if you're trying to understand the basics, this is quite, something like this is quite helpful. There's other versions. I like to use this one. So what it is today, I'm going to leave the link for this particular video in the description box. There's a fish on the screen, and that is because it is a Saint Peter fish. That's what they call it. This video is the history of St. Peter with David Suchet, part 1, Our History. So this channel's called Our History. I came across this, and what it is in the last few weeks, you've had the reintroduction of Donald Trump, DJ Trump, as the next president of Babylon the Great, which is, in the scriptures, that's what we know it as, which is known as America. The world calls this particular place America. And so in January, we've got Donald Trump coming back in for a second time. And, not a lot of people understand that reincarnation is a concept that is true, and it's also mentioned in the scriptures. It's a biblical concept. So, all the people that are living on the earth today, they've been here at some point in the past. We all have. When you got people that pass away, they die. Their body eventually, nowadays, there's so many different types of rituals. People burn the bodies, they bury them, they do all sorts of different rituals. Ultimately, that's just flesh. And, according to the scriptures, the flesh returns to the dust of the ground. So, it's supposed to, be put into the ground. Obviously, it would decompose, so on and so forth. Obviously, that doesn't happen with people who are doing cremations. But, once that happens, your spirit goes back into the spiritual realm. You're told, what it is that you've done in your life. What your biblical identity is, and, what type of wickedness you've been up to on earth. And then you receive a judgment for the next time you come back to earth. So every third or fourth generation, you come back through your father's bloodline. And, that's why there's, things like history repeat itself, fashions repeat itself. And you've got families within families. People say, oh, he's got the same instincts or characteristics in this particular child as his great granddad, or so on and so forth. So knowing that, and then seeing Donald Trump come back into power, understanding, we understand that we believe that is Nero from the ancient Roman Empire. And with that, my brain's ticking, because, we know we have the true prophets out there in Babylon the Great, America, and then you have other prophets around the earth teaching the same word, the same version of the gospel, which is the true version of the gospel, in the name of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai. So we know the prophets are back out here. The spirit of a prophet is subject unto a prophet. And then, you look at, for example, Revelation chapter 20. Chapter 20 verse 4 says there, and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. It says, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushai and for the word of the Most High. It says, and which had not worshipped the beasts spoken of in Revelation chapter 13, consisting of EU and NATO, the worldwide geopolitical system controlled by America. Revelation 17, it says that those that had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark, spoken of in Revelation 13. It says, upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with the anointed 1,000 years, speaking of Yahushai. So, this is what part of, we've got two major prophecies to come. We've got the introduction of the MOTB, the changing of the worldwide monetary system, turning it into a digital system, and then being told that we have to take a device embedded under our skin in order to operate within that financial system. That's spoken of in Revelation 13, verse 16 on down. And then we have, obviously, World War III, the destruction of America, so on and so forth, and then the return of Yahushai. So with the reintroduction of DJ Trump, aka Nero, we know, we're that's one of the reasons we know we're coming towards the fulfillment of these two particular prophecies. And obviously with the fulfillment of the MOTB, Revelation 13, you'd have to tie in what's written here in Revelation 20 and 4, that it says, and I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushai and for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. So certain people that are preaching this word in the name of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai, that are true prophets, that are back here today, it says here, you may be beheaded for this word, especially when it comes to the MOTB. So knowing Donald Trump, aka Nero, is back in play, it lets us know, you could use the phrase, well, it should set alarm bells ringing. Well, to the elect are already awake, so they understand and they can see this coming. So it's just part of a fulfillment of prophecy. But it's something that, we'll be expecting to see soon. Throughout the whole time of the election, we've told you what prophecy is. So I explain myself, for example. It doesn't matter who wins the election in America, the banking elites are in control. I gave you possible scenarios. For example, if Kamala were to win, that could upset a lot of people in America. That could cause civil unrest. World War III could escalate, so on and so forth, and we could be there quite soon. That was just a scenario. But then we have another scenario where Donald Trump wins the election, and you then come up with a different sequence of events. But what we kept explaining is that whatever happens, the sequence of events will lead to the fulfillment of these prophecies. And I explained that the sequence of these events are controlled on a higher level by the banking elites. So now we fast forward, the banking elites, it's not an election, it's a selection. They gave the people DJ Trump, and really, when you look at it, it makes sense, because the scriptures tell us that there's nothing new under the sun, everything repeats. We know that people are reincarnated, they're back on the earth, and they're back to play their particular roles. Then this leads me on to think, well, just as much as Nero is back, aka DJ Trump, we're in the revised Roman Empire, the if you like, the new Rome, is America, which is known in the scriptures as, Babylon the Great. You may know that as America. And obviously Nero's back in charge. The prophets are back. And obviously when it comes, you think of beheadings, then you think of Apostle Paul. Then you're going to think of Apostle Peter, because he was martyred as well for this particular word. And that's kind of the thoughts I've been having, since I saw Donald Trump obviously elected. But that's what eventually, I'll go into some other bits in a minute, but that's what eventually led me into this particular video, the history of St. Peter with David Suchet, part 1. There's a part 2 here. They are like, this one's 54 minutes. And this one's 54 minutes. So you're looking at an hour and 50 minutes to clock up the two. But it's a good watch, because what he does is he tries to follow through the footsteps of Peter. At certain points, he tries to go to certain locations as close to what they can assume. I mean, I believe they went to one house where they actually found a house where the Apostle Peter stayed, and there were certain pictures. Right? Oh yeah, they said they found graffiti on the wall, but the graffiti was of scriptures, verses and prayers to the Most High. So they found a location, for example, one location in particular where Apostle Peter stayed for a bit, and then obviously because it was somewhere where he stayed when he left, they tried to preserve it, and while he was there, apparently he had other apostles or disciples visit him, and they were writing prayers to the Most High on the wall. Obviously, they describe it as graffiti. So, when you watch this particular video, David Suchet, I don't know what he is. He looks like a small hat, but he's trying to come from the perspective of a Christian, I suppose. It's a Christian video, an anti-Christian video. So, they take the word Gentiles, which means the other nations. They think that the scriptures apply to the Gentiles as in the other nations. No, the scriptures only apply to the Gentiles as in the Israelites living amongst the other nations. And obviously that's a big argument that you get to, when you get to, for example, with Apostle Paul. But I'll leave the link for these two videos in the description box, and if you get time, watch them. Like I say, you're not going to learn anything of what David Suchet is saying. He's going to speak a lot of stupid stuff. They're coming from a Christian point of view, so they don't really know what's going on. However, the fact that he follows through the footsteps of the Apostle Peter is obviously quite interesting. Going back to this particular timeline here, the Bible timeline, obviously you could, go to various parts. You see here, when it comes to Acts and letters, obviously you've got the apostles Peter and Paul. You've got Pentecost, New Testament church, and the letters. Now, when you go through, the scriptures, obviously, certain people you read about are, the same people in past times. They come back. For example, Yahushua was Isaac, also King Solomon, and obviously came as Yahushua himself. So, you go through the scriptures, and there's obviously people in certain areas, they're highlighted for certain things. Certain bits of information are given to us for certain reasons. Like I said before, you've got the Torah, history books, prophets, poetry books, the Gospels, Acts, letters, and Revelation. So all this is given to us for a reason. It's obviously for the prophets to decipher and explain to the elect, whoever they may be. And so when you look at Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul here, obviously these figures are quite big figures, and especially today, they're still revered in high esteem. Obviously these Gentiles, these other nations, as in the other nations, they've taken our scriptures. They think it applies to them. They think that the Gentiles doesn't mean Israelite foreigners. They think it means themselves. They created this religion called Christianity. You've got the Roman Catholic Church. You've got Islam, which is a child of the Roman Catholic Church, and so on and so forth. But when you look in the Roman Catholic Church, or or even with the Antichrists, Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul are quite big figures. Now the reason is obviously, on the basics, you have the law, which is this is what a lot of people don't. It's very basic, but to sit there and see people still not to be able to understand it, it's mind-boggling. Obviously, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua has got these people's minds blinded. But you go back to for example the days of Moses. The law was given, the Most High's law was given to us. 40 years of wandering, and the most Yahweh was pretty much fed up with the children of Israel. So you go through the time of Saul, David, Solomon, so on and so forth. Israel kings, 400 years between testaments, and then you have the birth of Yahweh Shai. So understanding that Yahweh Shai comes, he now is that prophet spoken of by Moses that will come again with this new covenant. You have the ancient way of obeying the Most High, following the laws, making sacrifices to the Most High, so on and so forth. However, we failed at that. So the ultimate sacrifice is the Son of the Most High, Yahweh Shai. That sacrifice was made, and so now we have a chance in coming back to the Most High through Yahweh Shai. You've got these people that want to call on the Most High without calling on Yahweh Shai. They say Yahweh Shai shouldn't be worshipped. Well, you can't access the Most High unless you go through Yahweh Shai. The Most High gave you the law. You go back to the days of Moses, he gave you the law. And you failed miserably. You got Leviticus there. We pretty much failed miserably. So the Most High took his law back. And here we are, we pretty much all end up as Gentiles. Eventually we all, as were today before we woke up, we end up living amongst these other nations. And this is what you get. You wake up, you look around, the Spirit's put back on you, your eyes open, you look around, you look at our people, and you realize we're in a low state. This is what happens when, we forsake Yahweh. So, Yahweh has given us a second chance. He said, well, look, I'll make the ultimate sacrifice. I'll put my son up on the cross, and my son, he will deliver an elect. We'll destroy this wicked kingdom, and we'll set up the kingdom of heaven, and then we'll bring back the children of Israel through that. And this time, I'll give them a new body, a spiritual body, which will stop them going off, and everything will be perfect from there. So I know that sounds very basic and very easy to understand, yet you've got all these people who supposedly preaching the word of the Most High, yet they can't get their head around those simple basic facts. And you're looking at it here on the screen, and if I explain it the way I explained it, and you look at this, with your color, it's color coded, broken down into sections to make it easy to understand. And if you still can't get your head around it, I don't know what to tell you. But then, so Yahweh Shai, he's put on the cross, the ultimate sacrifice is made, and so now we're in we're in a new era. The law is not going to save you. No matter how much you follow the law, you can't fulfill the law 100% in this current time that we're living in, simply due to the fact that we go to our enemy for the want of all things. But obviously, we have a thing called faith. We believe that man that came and died is coming back. That is Yahweh Shai. in this time here. We've never met him. Some of us maybe met him in our previous lives. However, we have no proof apart from the scriptures, apart from the gospel and the Holy Spirit and the teachers. So we believe, we have that faith, and now we're in that new era. We're waiting on the return. We're waiting on the change. And even though, all we need is the faith to the elect, all they need is faith. Obviously, by having the Spirit on them, they're going to automatically want to follow the laws to the best of their ability. So from that point onwards, Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul are quite important figures, because as it says here, New Testament church, Pentecost, the letters, and then obviously Apostle Paul went to the Gentiles. These other nations took it on board, and the rest is history. Here we are today. And the thing with Apostle Peter is, so you can understand, for example, Apostle Paul, he took the word to the Gentiles. He was chosen to do that, and then you've got the other nations, not the Gentiles as in the Israelite foreigners, the Gentiles as in the other nations. They have taken this on board. They believe it's their gospel. It's annoying because we're out here telling them that they're not really the people. However, them believing that they are the people, they've put together the blue letter. They put together all these artifacts, even this timeline. So then you go into what they say, and they try to give Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul, they're part of the world, so they just take it on board and start to worship them as if they are something. Although I'm pretty sure if Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul were here today, they'd say, no, don't do that. That's not what it's all about. So you go to Matthew chapter 16, and this is Yahushua talking to Apostle Peter, and he says, he saith unto them, but who say ye that I am? It says, and Simon Peter answered and said, thou art the anointed, the Christ, the anointed. And it's a description. It says, the Son of the living power. It says, and Yahushua answered and said unto him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah. Bar-Jonah is like a family name, like a surname, like son of Jonah. It says, Yahushua told him, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. It says, and I say also unto thee that thou art Peter. So now he's changed Simon's name to Peter. And it says, and upon this rock I will build my church. So, in the Greek, it's Petrus is rock, which is where you get the word Peter from. And it goes on to say, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosened in heaven. It says, then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Yahushua the anointed. And so with this particular interaction, what Yahushua is doing is he's pretty much making Apostle Peter the head of the church. See, what happens is obviously Yahushua initially gathers his disciples together, and then when you look at Apostle Peter, he has to piecemeal things together, and at certain points he makes the wrong decision, or he makes certain errors or mistakes. And what it is, he was pretty much being trained to be the head. So to be the head, when you have, like, for example, a CEO of a company, and he's just giving out shit to people all day and pissing people off. But then you have a CEO of a company that's worked on the ground level. He started up on the shop front. Then he worked his way into a manager's office, and then he's worked his way into head office. Then he's worked his way into the boardroom, and now he's CEO. So that CEO is going to be the right CEO because he understands what the man on, the foot soldier has to do, the man on street level. So what it is, he went through these particular events, and it looks like, oh, he made mistakes all the time. Oh, he made this, he got it wrong. He didn't have faith at certain particular points with, walking on the water. He didn't have the faith. And you look at it and you go, well, why is that? Why is that happening? What it is, he put him through a process where he took him from the bottom up. So what it displays is, for example, Peter in the beginning had a lack of faith, but eventually he's made the head of the church. So obviously his faith builds up through the process, and that's part of the process that Peter goes through. So eventually he says, thou art Peter, upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. It says, and I will give unto thee the keys of the kingdom. So Yahweh Shai, imagine that. You're having a conversation with Yahweh Shai. He goes to you, yeah, here's the key. I'm giving you the key. It's not a physical key. It's a spiritual key. So, Peter doesn't have to worry about, where's he got that key, he's got a keychain and make sure he will put it in a safe. It's a spiritual key. Don't forget the disciples asked Yahweh Shai, how will we know when the end is coming? And he said, don't worry. I'll come upon you in the Holy Spirit, and you will pretty much remember everything that I've told you. So yeah, Apostle Peter went through this particular process. He got built up. He went through these situations. It exposed certain issues like a lack of faith, a lack of understanding, or this or that in certain areas. But what it was to do, it was to take it to a basic level, start the building blocks. Let's start from the first building block, and let's just work it up 1, 2, 3, 4. And before you know it, you have this structure, but you understand it well because you've had to work from the bottom rather than just cutting halfway through and jump straight to the top. Apostle Peter was a fisherman, so he was in the when you go through that particular documentary, for example, he's they'll take you to where he was a fisherman in that particular area, and it's, how can I say it, it's like a countryside type of, it's not a city type of place. So he was an uneducated person, and so to go from that to actually head of the church, obviously he had to go through this particular process. It's quite outstanding when you actually think about it. But obviously that's what Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shai would do. They would take the weak things of this world to to confound the wise. So that's obviously with Apostle Peter. Apostle Paul, it's a little bit more obvious because obviously a bit more books. He's written most of the books or the letters in the New Testament are written by him. A lot of people are using them, especially in the modern day Christianity. So they use his words to kind of make fit what they should and shouldn't be doing. In their eyes, in these Gentiles' eyes that have taken on this word, they think Apostle Paul changed everything from what Yahweh Shai taught to make it for them. So, for that, they make Apostle Paul their sort of hero, although, they've got it completely wrong. So, but they both do it, they do it with both. Both. So yeah, just going back to the Pentecost, for example, for Apostle Peter, Pentecost and Peter are significant in the Bible for several reasons. It says it, including the birth of the church. This is Peter, the first pope, preached his first sermon on Pentecost, converting thousands of people and marking the beginning of the church. This is a transformation of Peter. Peter's story shows how the power of the Holy Spirit transformed him from a fisherman into a leader of the church. says the outpouring of the Holy Spirit on Pentecost. The Holy Spirit filled the believers, causing them to speak in other languages and uniting them in a common purpose. A watershed moment, since Pentecost is considered a turning point in the Most High's plan of salvation, as it shows how Yahushua keeps his promise and unites people to him through the Holy Spirit. He doesn't actually, unite all the nations. He only the nation of Israel, and in particular, he's only uniting the elect at the minute. Obviously, later on, it will be the whole nation of Israel. But again, this is back to these Gentiles thinking this word is for them. And it says here, the beginning of a new era. The apostles and believers were united in a common purpose to spread the gospel. Pentecost was originally a Hebrew harvest festival, but after the destruction of the temple in 70 CE, it became a day to commemorate the Israelites receiving the Torah. So when you go back to, for example, like this, now you understand why you see the Pentecost and New Testament church, and a new era begins. You see, you had Yahushua here, and he was teaching the disciples, but you couldn't be saved in Yahushua because he was alive. So technically, the whole thing of believing in Yahushua couldn't be activated until Yahushua went on the cross. So even though you say, well, what we're preaching is the same as what Yahushua is preaching while he was here, that era of preaching of Yahushua coming back for a second time started after Yahushua went on the cross. And that's why you get to the Pentecost. It's a watershed moment. It's a new era in believing in Yahweh Bahashim Yahushua, which these other nations, they have no idea what they're trying to get involved in. They've taken it, they're running with it, but they're completely lost. But what they do is they hold, for example, here you see like Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul. You've got these icons, these ancient frescoes. So this is them depicting them, building a church together. I was looking into this. I mean, normally we look at the black Russian icons, and you get the darker images. It's hard because here you can see sort of like a darker color. So this is probably more original. Sometimes you see an image like this. I mean, this is whitewashed. They still kept the same hairstyles. That's Apostle Peter there. That's Apostle Paul. I mean, so that would obviously, you look at the hair, for example, he's going to have that sort of, that type of hair. However, they try to change up the skin colors. When I went a bit deeper on this one, because you see that one a lot, the icon of St. Peter and Paul, founders of the Antiochian See. This is in this beautiful icon we see apostles Peter and Paul embracing each other. It is a bust icon with Peter to the right and Paul to the left. They got that wrong. Peter to the right. No, that's Peter on the left, and that's Paul on the right. They're tripping me out. Peter's right hand embraces Paul. I mean, they just go on to describe it. But I looked into this, and even this wasn't created around that time that they were. It says here, then it says there he received baptism at the hands of Ananias and set out to preach to Gentiles. It says the icon dates back to the early 15th century AD and is kept in a museum in Oxford. So these icons, you come across this icon of Apostle Paul and Peter, or Peter and Paul. They're not even close to it. They're about 500 odd years after they were actually alive. You may find some others, I don't know, you'd have to dig deep. This one here looks a lot older, obviously, because the skin colors are a lot darker. But again, you kind of get the idea. But yeah, like I say, they celebrate these two. Obviously in my mind, the reason why I was thinking about these two is obviously because of Nero, as I mentioned in the beginning. You're looking at Nero here, which is AKA, that is, he's returned as in the name of Donald Trump. That biblical concept, reincarnation. Nero is Donald Trump. So it says here, the persecution under Nero, in which Paul and Peter were honored at Rome with martyrdom in behalf of religion. I should say on behalf. That's obviously a spelling error. What it is, so these are the bullet points which I'm just going to read. This is the actual information here, but I'm not going to read that. This is Bible Hub. It says here, when the government of Nero was now firmly established, he began to plunge into unholy pursuits and armed himself even against the religion of the power of the universe, the God of the universe. So this is what Nero did 2,000 years ago. And it's Donald Trump is this man back again. You've seen the cabinet that he's getting together, and now we know, we understand which direction Yahweh Bashim Yahushai is taking these prophecies. America have been complaining about all these problems for a long time, and so just like Nero had that type of idea for ancient Rome, he's back now in America, which is the modern day Rome, and he's back with the same ideas to make America great again. Nero was also known as a builder. He was as in like, he wanted to have things built and construct. You know what it's like. Someone takes over a town or a city, and they say we're gonna do this and that to it. We're gonna build a new leisure center for that. We're gonna build a shopping mall, and we're gonna make everything nice and fantastic for all the people, local people, to use. So Nero was like that. And, I don't need to tell you that's exactly what Donald Trump is like. He's got that, even though, for example, he's involved in, like, I think his dad gave him the money in the beginning, so the money wasn't even his to get started. He's probably done a lot of shady deals. You can put all that to the side, but he's obviously still that type of person. He's got that type of thing about him where he's that type of businessman. He'll come in, he'll throw the cash, he'll save your company. That's all it is. He's dealing with America like it's a corporation, like you've got this corporation that you've been, this company you've been running for a while, you and your family, and now you're struggling to make ends meet. You're on the borderline. You need to bring in more customers. You don't know how to do it, and then a man like Donald Trump comes in, throws cash on the table, says I want 50%. It's just another episode of Dragon's Den. That's all it is. So Donald Trump's rolled in, that big businessman. Yep, I've got the ideas. I'm going to fix the country, and that's how he gets the people behind him. With that salesman talk. So yeah, that first one. When the government of Nero was now firmly established, he began to plunge into holy pursuits and armed himself even against the religion of the God of the universe. So Donald Trump's coming in, and there's a famine of the word coming very soon, or famine of hearing the word. And there's there's what we call truth. They're going to clamp down on. They're going to say this is a so-called untruth, and they're going to try to stop us warning you of these prophecies. For example, with the MOTB, they're going to bring the MOTB about by saying there's a problem with the border control, and that's why you can see DJ Trump setting up the particular cabinet that he's setting up. The people that he's got running with him in office, they're all here to do that. America have been complaining for years. They want this problem fixed, they want that problem fixed. Biden let this happen and let that happen, and now they've got what they wanted. They've got Donald Trump in there, but Donald Trump's going to take it to a whole new level because he's operating under the orders of the banking elites. But yeah, moving on to point number 2, it says here to describe the greatness of his depravity does not lie within the plan of the present work. It says, as there are many indeed that have recorded his history in most accurate narratives, everyone may at his pleasure learn from them the coarseness of the man's extraordinary madness. So what they're basically saying is when you look into accounts within history, you weigh it all up, it's very easy to see that Nero is a man of extraordinary madness. It says under the influence of which he had accomplished the destruction of so many myriads without any reason. He ran into such blood guiltness that he did not spare even his nearest relatives and dearest friends, but destroyed his mother and his brothers and his wife, with very many others of his own family, as he would private and public enemies, with various kinds of deaths. So Nero was a brutal man. And even though what we're about to see with these major prophecies, I'm telling you that the strings are being pulled by the banking elites, but they're putting that person with that brutal spirit as the forefront, as the showpiece. He's the man who's going to call the shots, and he's going to have no qualms in doing it. He's in his past life, he's already declared. He says he armed himself even against the religion of the God of the universe. But moving on to point 3, he says, but with all these things, this particular in the catalogue of his crimes was still wanting, that he was the first of the emperors who showed himself as an enemy of the divine religion. So that man who, it says it was the first of the emperors who showed himself as an enemy of the divine religion, that man is back in power today. That's why it's very significant for Donald Trump to be elected back into power, elected, or should I say selected. It says the Roman Tertullian is likewise a witness of this. It says, he writes as follows: examine your records. There you will find that Nero was the first that persecuted this doctrine, particularly when, after subduing all the East, he exercised his cruelty against all at Rome. He says, we glory in having such a man, the leader in our punishment, for whosoever knows him can understand that nothing was condemned by Nero unless it was something of great excellence. So again, Nero was known, he went against the divine gospel. He went against the Christians, original Christians, which are the believers in Yahweh B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, the word that we teach, not the word that the Church of Christianity teach. That's a completely different thing. He's known for coming against those types of things. This is what he's going to do again. We're coming into a time called Jacob's trouble. And the Most High has given you Nero, who's known for going against the God of the universe. And you go back to the great fire in Rome. There was a great fire in Rome, and he pretty much blamed it on the Israelites, on the Christians, on the believers. And that's why eventually you had Apostle Paul and Apostle Peter. Apostle Peter was crucified upside down. Apostle Paul was beheaded. And obviously, when you look into it, when you watch that documentary, for example, even they say it. It's said in many places that eventually people started to believe that Nero, the fire was a false flag. It was created to create an incident so that they could blame the Christians, the true Christians, the true believers, and obviously that would give them reason to punish them. So it's the same thing that's happening now. You've got Jacob's troubles on the way. MOTB's on the way, and Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai just reintroduced Nero, aka DJ Trump. So you got to look at it like a stage. And even though Donald Trump was here 2 months ago, he was living, he was breathing, he was there. But you got to look at the world stage and who's in power, and what strings the Most High is going to pull. So ultimately, as of the result of that election, you look at it now from the Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai's point of view. Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai, who's bringing this judgment on the children of Israel, what he's done is he's reintroduced Nero. He said, remember this guy? He effed you up before, and I'm going to get him to F you up again. Last time it was a fire. This time it's going to be immigration. Or whatever. MOTB. So you can see where this is all going. It's beautiful. It's actually... I don't know how else to describe it apart from to say it's actually beautiful. Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai. There's no new thing under the sun. I said it before. You think, you have like problems with certain people and certain issues, but then you get around it, or this will happens, or that happens. You think these are just brand new scenarios in your life, and you're trying to work it out. You've been through these scenarios. You've already been through them before. You stood one time arguing with somebody for 2 hours over this truth, and then you thought to yourself, why did I do that? Next time, don't do that. After 5 minutes, just walk away. You probably did that in your previous life and made the same mistake and worked it out and reacted the same. Nero is back. The Most High has reintroduced him. He said, this is the guy that effed you up, and I'm giving him back to you. And you look at it, the prophets are back, everybody's back. The same people that were back there that went against Yahushai, the ones that were against him, the ones that were for him, everybody's back. They're all back. We're all back here. The question is, who are you? And who you are will determine whether you're going to receive judgment or not. So, through the Spirit, we can work out certain people. We know who they are. And like I keep saying, Nero is definitely DJ Trump. But it's beautiful. Like I say, when you look at the way the Most High works it all out, it's a new era. It's a new time. It's like when I say new era, it's we're 2,000 years later. There's new technology. These people out here in the world, they think everything's new. They think everything's modern and advanced from what it used to be. It's not. It's the same shit happening all over again with the same characters, the same players. But now you see, this time our eyes are open, even more than they used to be open. So when we see Donald Trump enter the stage, we know what time it is. This is Nero. Here we go. We know what's about to happen. But yeah, getting on with these bullet points. Number 5. Thus publicly, this is talking of Nero, thus publicly announcing himself as the first among the Most High's chief enemies. He was led on the slaughter of the apostles. He was led on, to the slaughter of the apostles. It is therefore recorded that Paul was beheaded in Rome itself, and Peter likewise was crucified under Nero. This account of Peter and Paul is sustained by the fact that their names are preserved in the cemeteries of that place even to the present day. It is confirmed likewise by Chaos, a member of the church who arose under Zephyrinus, Bishop of Rome. He, in a published disputation with Proclus, the leader of the Pygian heresy, speaks as follows concerning the places where the sacred corpses of the aforesaid apostles are laid. It says, but I can show you. So in those in these documents, it basically says, but I can show you the trophies of the apostles. So to them, the bodies of Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul were trophies. It was a trophy to them. They literally, like you see in the films, they'll behead someone, they hold up his head, say, "We got it," and the crowd will cheer. And he says, "But I can show you the trophies of the apostles, for if you will go to the Vatican or to the Orstein Way, you will find the trophies of those who laid the foundations of this church." It says, "And that they both suffered martyrdom at the same time is stated in Dionysius, the Bishop of Corinth, in the Epistle to the Romans, in the following words: You have thus, by such an admonition, bound together the planting of Peter and of Paul at Rome and Corinth, for both of them planted and likewise taught us in our Corinth. And they taught together in like manner in Italy, and suffered martyrdom at the same time. I have quoted these things in order that the truth of the history might be still more confirmed." So there's a little history there on Apostle Paul and Apostle Peter, seen as trophies to the Roman Empire, mainly to Nero. And so they say that the bodies are laying in these particular places. The Vatican or the Orstein Way, you'll find the trophies of those who laid the foundations of this church. And so, again, you can just confirm that it's all, when you go to various accounts, some people say this is, some people say, oh, it was, some people try to say, oh, what happened to Paul and what happened to Peter, we don't know. Obviously, the scriptures don't tell you. One school of thought is that the letters written to the churches in the New Testament, you don't really want to write to them, oh, by the way, Apostle Paul and Apostle Peter are dead, because then it deflates the movement. It they lose their momentum, because they go, oh, these great men that we were following are dead. So apparently that's why they say, like in the scriptures, it wasn't written like that to say that they actually died. And the reason is because obviously it's because when it's going out to, they say that, some of them were probably written by Luke, who probably didn't want to portray that image to believers. So it's not written in there. You have to go to these other sources outside of it. So it says here, location. Some say Peter was killed in the Circus of Nero, while Paul was killed at the Church of St. Paul outside the walls. So what it is from here, so this is the prison held in it's a Mamertine prison. I was looking at this. This is the kind of situation that they were held in. It's not really a nice prison. You've got a little hole in the top, and you're pretty much stuck in there all day. You've got a door, staircase. They take you back out to the top, and that's all it is. The guards will just look at you through there. I have to go back through the accounts, because I know Apostle Paul spent 2 years on house arrest, but I'm not sure, how long they would have spent in this particular prison. I know Apostle Paul was in another prison where the angel broke him out. Apostle Peter was caught up and in prison, I think, and another angel caught him out, got him out of there. So I'd have to go over that again, but I was just scanning over these pictures. There was one, this is what I'm trying to get at. This is all going to repeat again. So I'm not saying, who or someone will, but, Nero's back. He's entered the stage. So we know, we're looking at the book of Acts for Apostle Paul and Apostle Peter. Well, we're about to see Acts. We're about to see Revelation 13 and World War III, yet the return of Yahushua and the day of the Lord. Those 4 things are enough to blow the history books, wide open, and stamp their authority over the rest of it. But so then you think, well, Revelation chapter, what was it, 20? Yeah, 20:4 says that some will be beheaded. And then you got to look at Nero's in charge. Okay, well, he's the guy that could easily want to do that. He's done it in the past. He'll probably do it again. We've got the MOTB coming up, and then you can only but look at these prophets of old and look at their accounts of what they went through. You might end up in a jail, like not as bad as that, but you'll end up probably in a detention center. There'll be guillotines. You'll hear people screaming. You'll be hearing, you'll hear all sorts. It just be like a it's just be like hell on earth, basically, because it's the day of the Lord. It's the Most High. It's Jacob's trouble. It's time like never been seen before. So if you end up in a place like this, it's not going to be nice. But you just got to remember, it's all in the name of Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai. I hope that spirit's on you, keep you strong in that moment. You see, they would have been in a prison like this, and then you have a tiny little window. That's where the guards are up there. I was trying to find the picture because I found one earlier. Yeah, that's the one. Look. So you're stuck down there, and you're stuck in there basically, and when you look up, all you've got is that, and they're looking at you. You can see his face. I think that's someone's face, just staring down at you. So that's the prison. But yeah, what they do, I was looking into it a little bit further. So you've got the fact that they say Apostle Paul and Apostle Peter were martyred together on the same day. Obviously, they were both in Rome. And then obviously you've got these Gentiles, these other nations. They've taken on this word. They've twisted it, and cut this out and cut that out. And they've narrowed it down to about 4 precepts, which determines that because these 4 precepts sound good, now this whole Bible belongs to them. Not the Israelites, but these other nations. With the lie, the great famous lie, that's all around the earth today. And so what they've done is they've turned, they've turned, if you like, Peter and Paul into idols, which is not a good thing. If Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul were here today, they'd probably say you need to cut that out. But it's all part of history. It's all part of Most High's prophecy. And this Exodus 34:14 says, "For thou shalt worship no other God or no other power, no other deity, no nothing, no man, no anything." With the word power, just to confirm it, the word power can go into anything. You go to work, your boss, he's like the God at work. He determines whether you get fired or what else happens. It says godlike, mighty one, mighty men of rank, mighty heroes. It's funny because my new job that I've got starting in January is with mighty. But you go to work, for example, and you got your mortgage to pay, you got mouths to feed, and all that is in the hands of your boss. If he decides to sack you, you're fucked. You got to go and start all over again. So in that scenario, he's the God. And it says here, "For thou shalt worship no other God, for Yahweh, for the Yahweh whose name is jealous, is a jealous power, is a jealous God." So they like these people. They act like they're so holy, holier than thou. However, that already they've got these idols. They've turned Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul into idols. But it says here on June 29th, St. Peter and Paul are celebrated, 2 apostles, 2 very different men, both fundamental to the history of the church. I'm not going to go too much into it because they're coming is they don't know what they're talking about basically. But I just wanted to go into it with the again they go into the story of St. Peter, the men's fisherman, a normal man who ended up being the head of the church. Obviously, we know it's the elect. They don't. They don't understand, so they just think it's some random thing. But Apostle Peter represents, he grew up as an Israelite, knowing he's an Israelite, and then obviously with that, he taught the word of Yahweh Shai. Apostle Paul grew up as an Israelite, knew he was an Israelite, knew about Yahweh, but didn't believe in Yahweh Shai at first. They say he got converted. It wasn't actually a conversion. It was actually just more making him realize. He didn't convert from one religion to another. He just realized that what he believed in Yahweh actually, coincides with Yahweh Shai. So that's why those, they sort of like represent two parts, if you like, the Jews and the Gentiles. But yeah, they've it says here why are Peter and Paul celebrated together, leaving aside the tradition that wants them in Rome at the same time and killed on the same day. We can recognize the traits that unite Saint Peter and Paul, these two men so different, and ensure that they are celebrated together in their common will to spread the gospel message and the legacy left by the human and mortal experience of Yahweh Shai. Because also, again, Apostle Peter represents meeting Yahweh Shai, going through the process, learning, like I say, building up, becoming that rock. Apostle Paul represents not knowing Yahweh Shai, but then him arriving through the Spirit. So there's two sides to it. It's a little bit like following the law, but having faith at the same time. There's two parts to it. So, when you're trying to follow the law, it's like you're trying to do that in the aspect of Apostle Peter. But then when you're failing at it, and then you've got to have the faith to kind of back it up and go, well, at least I've got faith in Yahweh Shai, and I know he's the true Messiah. Now you're coming in the vein of Apostle Paul. You put it together, and it's like you've got like the yin and yang. But yeah, it says, if Peter was the stone on which the church was built, as well as leading the flock of the Most High, Paul was most fervent preacher of the word in the whole Mediterranean world, the first missionary in history. It says this is also no doubt about the link between St. Peter and Paul and Rome, where both died, but above all to the Christian rebirth of which both tended. So this is where you go into their false Christianity, the Antichrists, Renaissance 500 years ago, the rebirth, and it's what you've got out of it, what the modern day is called the religion of Christianity, which is not the truth. It says in 2012, Pope Emeritus Benedict the 16th declared them both principal patrons of the Church of Rome. So they're actually principal patrons of the Church of Rome. Imagine if this is what I'm saying, Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul will be here today. Nero's back. He's just entered the stage. It's the final scene. We're about to see this Jacob's trouble. Doesn't necessarily mean that Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul will be beheaded or crucified by Nero. But they're out there, and they could rock up to. Imagine if they could rock up to the Church of Rome and say, "Well, you made us principal patrons. So move out of the seat. I'm gonna take this chair. I'm gonna take over this building and turn it into my shit." So, anyway, even today, Rome remembers them with a great feast during which an impressive fireworks display takes place. Woo! It says, while Saint Peter is decorated with a magnificent infioriatara, and the Pope gives a band of white wool, the plaio, to the bishops of the city before kissing the foot of the statue of St. Peter, that for the anniversary is covered with a red cloak. So there's a statue of St. Peter in Rome, and the Pope is kissing it at the celebration of the feast of whatever it is, Peter and Paul. So they're idolizing. Bug outs. Total bug outs. And if But like I said, if Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul were here today, they'd go up there and give you a straight backhand and say, stop kissing the feet of the statue. Knock the statue down, get rid of it. Anyway, although distant in history and experience, and despite having clashed with each other precisely because of these differences, St. Peter and Paul are like complementary brothers, bound by the gospel of which they were messengers and depositories. Was it say depositories? It says in the discourses of Saint Augustine we read, one day is dedicated to the feast of the two apostles, but they two were one. It says, although they were martyred on different days, however, they were one in Christ. So in here they start to sort of like debate whether they're actually born, whether they actually killed on the same day or not. But it goes on to say, so two individuals, that history is kept separate. Says the nature and nurture have kept apart and gathered together in Christ for Christ. This is just some Christian BS. This is what they do. They just throw a bunch of words together to make it sound like, oh yeah, this is what the world do. So two individuals, that history is kept separate, that nature and nurture have kept apart, have gathered together in Christ and for Christ. That's straight out of the book of the IUIC. Some BS. The depiction of the embrace of St. Peter and Paul, the icon of St. Peter and Paul represents them in the act of hugging. Perhaps it was with a hug that they greeted each other before being taken away by the executioners, according to tradition. But this embrace means much more than a simple getting between the two men. But I'm not going to go into it too much, because what did we read earlier? We read that the icon is from 1500. So it's not of an eyewitness that was there at the time. Look, 1450 AD. Is it 1450? 15th century AD. The icon dates back. So, but I just wanted to highlight that basically. But what it is with this, the fact that you've got the Pope kissing Peter's feet, the statue, at the celebration, they actually have, I think I got it here, where is it? The primacy of Peter. The primacy of Peter, also known as Petrine primacy, is the position of preeminence that is attributed to Peter among the 12 apostles. So the Catholic view, in Catholicism, it is held that the primacy of Peter is a basis for the primacy of the Bishop of Rome over the other bishops throughout the Catholic Church. The extension of Petrine primacy to popes is known as the primacy of the bishops of Rome. So basically they consider Peter the head pope, if you like. You've got all these popes in Rome, Roman Catholic Church. It's all a load of rubbish. It's all false. It's all lies. It's all made up. It's back to this Gentiles. We're the Gentiles. That means, Yahweh Shai is coming for us. No, the Gentiles are Israelites living amongst you. We only want them. We don't want you. But with that, they turned it into their own religions, and they've actually made Apostle Peter the position of preeminence. So he's actually over the popes, and that's why you got the Pope kissing the feet of his statue. I mean, these people they're just bugged out. I don't know where else to take it. I mean, what do you do with these people? It's back to with Apostle Paul when he's walking around Athens, and he's looking at all these inscriptions, and he's thinking, you people are bugged out. Like people will just make anything up, and then other people believe it, and you're like, what the fuck? So here it is, 2,000 years later. You got the Pope kissing Apostle Peter's the feet of the statue, and they're celebrating Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul's day because they died together. But then some people are like, oh, they didn't die together. They can't even make it up. But anyway, I just wanted to go into, like I say, since DJ Trump came in, and we know what time it is. It's Nero. Nero's back on the stage. So if Nero's back on the stage, chances are Peter and Paul are there too. Apostle Peter was probably, he's more than likely where the majority of Israelites are. And where would that be today? That's America. So 99.9% chance Apostle Peter's in America. Don't know. Work that out if you can find him. And chances are Apostle Paul is probably out there amongst the other nations going through a whole heap of bullshit. Dealing with lost people. So, but that's not really that important, if you're preaching the word, you're preaching the word. Chances are, if you're a member of the elect and you're a true prophet, then chances are you're one of the ancient prophets. But what we need to understand is Nero's back. So Nero's back, and that signifies go time. We look at history, we look at historical events, we look at the events in the scriptures, how events we went through as people. We look at the leaders that were there at the time, and it's all starting to make sense. The Great Fire of Rome. I did have the date somewhere, but I don't know what I did with the page. Yeah, 64 AD. The Great Fire of Rome was a devastating inferno that took place in Roman Empire's capital city. 5 days, July the 18th to the 21st, 64 AD. I don't know how accurate that is, but yeah, 64 AD. The Great Fire of Rome. Nero blamed it on the Israelites and persecuted the Israelites. Later on, people say, well, they think that he did it himself, he caused it himself. Isn't that exactly what happens in this empire that we're living in? You've seen 9/11. So just in case you're not sure about what I'm saying, you've seen 9/11. Something happened, buildings collapsed. Everybody questioned it. What's going on? Is it the enemy? Is it this? Is it that? Come to find out, it's your government that did it. So, we're back in that same time. Same thing's happening. We've got Nero's back on stage. MOTB's coming up. There's a problem with immigration. Scripture's talking about, enemy coming in like a flood. Jacob's trouble, a time like never been seen before. So I'm going to leave it right there. Like I say, before I go, just to remind you, I'll leave the link for these two videos in the description box. The history of St. Peter with David Suchet. Like I say, he goes off a lot, but he walks you through the actual physical places, some of the places Peter went, which I found I like it. I find it quite interesting when they do that, because you actually get to see certain things. So obviously, we know the scriptures better than the narrators. We know the scriptures better than, he speaks to historians and philosophers. Okay, they show you the artifacts, and they do, like at one point, he goes to a weapons expert, and he asks them about the weapons that the disciples have, what they would have had on them to protect themselves. And then the weapons expert shows him the type of weapons. That stuff we can understand. And that's what we take from it. When it comes to the scriptures, we don't take anything from them. We take the understanding that we already have, and we apply it to the information that they're showing us. So take a look, and I hope that's edifying. Until next time, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashim Rakak Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.